My keys to the game for the San Francisco 49ers to take down the Kansas City Chiefs and exact revenge on the Chiefs for losing Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas back in February. Number one, there is mental doubt for this Niners team. Human nature starts to creep in when you can't beat an opponent. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have owned Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners have never beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And let me liken this to a real-life situation. Imagine getting denied date after date after date after date. At some point, you start to lose confidence in yourself. For this Niners team, they've never been on the winning end of beating the Chiefs while led by Reid and Mahomes. So if they're able to win this game, it is a big, big weight off of their shoulders. Key to the game number 2. The 49ers have to stop the Kansas City Chiefs in the red zone. All 5 of the Chiefs' opponents so far this year have been able to do that because Kansas City, like San Francisco, has really struggled in the red area. The Chiefs are 29th in red zone scoring percentage. They have scored touchdowns when in the red area under 39% of the time. That's why all of their games, except for one, coming in Week 5 against the Saints, have been close. So just like Kyle Shanahan has had issues with play designs and play calling and punching it into the paint in that red zone, the same can be said for Andy Reid. But if the Chiefs finally explode and they are able to finish continuously in the red area, it's going to be hard for the Niners to win this game. Coming off the bye, given Andy Reid's excellence and dominance coming off the bye, he always comes off that week off very creative as a play caller. And he spends hours and hours digging into the tape of his team and the opposition to try to draw things up that are very innovative and creative, coming up with new wrinkles and intricacies for how to catch the opposing defense off guard because he has an extra week in order to do that. Andy Reid, during the bye week, isn't going to Mexico to kick his feet up, take down some hamburgers, and drink some drinks, right? Even though I don't even think he does drink because I think he's Mormon. Andy Reid lives and breathes football. This is all that he thinks about. So he's been at the facility, even during the bye week, studying this Niners tape, trying to find ways for him to exploit this Nick Sorensen defense. And in speaking of Nick Sorensen, this is a mismatch for San Francisco. Now, Nick Bosa is having an all-pro year. Fred Warner is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, especially after the injury, unfortunately, to Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions. This Niners team has some talent on the defensive side of the ball, but we have seen this year that Nick Sorensen has struggled as a first-year defensive coordinator. So you have a rookie defensive coordinator against one of the best, most creative, finest offensive minds in the history of the NFL. And when Andy Reid, through his tape study, finds a weakness, he will try to exploit it. Will Nick Sorensen be able to stall this Andy Reid offense? It's a big key to the game for San Francisco. On the other side of the football, the Niners offense, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy against Steve Spagnuolo, one of the top, if not the best defensive coordinators in the sport. So naturally, you look at how the Chiefs stack up offensively and defensively this year. They are 15th in points per game at 23.5 offensively. And a big reason for that is because they can't capitalize in the red zone, but they're 11th in yards per game at 354.5. So they've had no issues with moving the football. They are 14th in yards per play at 5.5, about middle of the pack in the NFL. 9th on third downs at 42.5%, an area where the Niners defense has struggled to get off the field. But red zone efficiency, 38.8%. That's 29th. But defensively, this Chiefs team still has and boosts one of the best defenses in the NFL. 6th in points per game at 17. 9th in yards per game at 305. 9th in yards per play at 5.2. 14th on third down. So that's an area where the Niners have performed very well. Hopefully that trend can continue. But then when teams get in the red zone, the Chiefs defense forcing a lot of field goals. 10th at 46.5%. As we know in Super Bowl 58, Spags' defense caused a lot of fits for Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. One of the reasons why, Spags does a great job of mixing up his looks. He will send the house to Brock Purdy, and he'll send that blitz pressure in between the tackles, or he'll load the box. He'll send corner blitzes either timed or on a delay. He is very creative with mixing his looks. He'll tease that blitz, and then he'll drop some of his defenders back in coverage. Very similar to what Brian Flores does with the Minnesota Vikings. And when the Niners have been faced against that blitz pressure, and we saw that back in week 2, Brock Purdy struggled, turned the football over a couple of times. Kyle Shanahan struggled with his play calling and his play designs to combat that. As for how the Niners stack up, still having a really good offensive season, 8th in points per game at 27, 2nd in yards per game at 420, 2nd in yards per play at 6.5, 6th best third down team. Big reason for that, Brock Purdy able to create out of structure with his legs in the red zone. They were 29th going into that Seattle game. They have moved up to 25th at 44.4% after finishing in the red area 3 times in that second half. And yes, one of those was that Kyle Juszczyk touchdown at the end of the game in garbage time. Defensively for the Niners, 12th in points per game at 21.7, 11th in yards per game, 18th in yards per play, 22nd on third downs. That's not good when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You can defend it really well, but Patrick Mahomes will find a way to gash you, break your heart, and take the wind out beneath your sails. And then the Niners' red zone defense also hasn't been good. So what's going to give? Bad Chiefs red zone offense, bad Niners red zone defense. Key to the game number 7, red zone scoring is going to be huge, especially for the Niners in this game. Because when you have to go score for score, blow for blow with Patrick Mahomes, they just find a way to outlast you and outscore you. And also, you do not want to be in a close game against Mahomes. If he has the ball late, how many times have we seen him be able to come up with an explosive play, drive the offense right down the field, scoring a touchdown like they did in the Super Bowl, or Harrison Butker has a really good leg and he's able to kick from 60 yards and in a very accurate way. And the difference between getting 3 and 7 can be the difference in this game, because these are 2 of the top teams in the National Football League. In the red zone against Seattle, did the Niners find their answer? Did they find the solution to their red zone woes? And is it George Kittle and utilizing him in the red area? And if teams try to double him and take him away, does that open up the other players on the offensive side of the football for San Francisco? George Kittle, 2 red zone touchdowns, both in the second half on great throws from Brock Purdy. George Kittle also having an all-pro caliber year. Running the football will be hard for the Niners in this game. This Chiefs defense, very good against the run. They're awesome along the defensive line, led by Chris Jones, still the best defensive tackle in the NFL. Nick Bolton, one of the top linebackers in the game. Trent McDuffie, one of the top defensive backs in the game. And we'll see if Jordan Mason, the NFL's second leading rusher, now that Derrick Henry has overtaken him, is going to be able to play with the shoulder injury. But the Chiefs against the run, they are 8th in opposing rush play percentage, which means teams run the ball 40% of the time. But yards per rush, even though teams run it a lot, they're only averaging 3.7 yards per pop. That's 4th in the NFL defensively for Kansas City. Rushes per game, 23.6, 7th. The Chiefs, 5th in rushing yards per game surrendered at 88.4. Kind of that happy zone for the Niners. When they run for more than 100 yards, they find success a lot. And then the Chiefs aren't allowing a lot of rushing touchdowns. Only 0.4 given up on average per game. That's 3rd in the NFL. Key to the game number 9. No special teams breakdowns. This Niners special teams coverage unit has been awful. Whether it's punt coverage, whether it's kickoff coverage. And as we saw in Seattle, Matthew Wright does not have a strong leg. He struggles to kick the ball out of the end zone. And that leads to a lot of returns. And this Niners team, all year long, has given up big returns. And it's burned San Francisco. You had the fake punt converted for a first down against the Rams. That was the momentum-changing moment of that game against Los Angeles. Jake Moody got hurt on a special teams breakdown on a kick coverage. And then last week, Matthew Wright got hurt on a special teams kickoff coverage breakdown. And the Niners gave up a 97-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. The Niners have had special teams blunders in a lot of huge games, including games against Kansas City, and Andy Reid really emphasizes special teams. You have a special teams breakdown in this game, it could be the difference between a win or a loss. And yes, coming in at number 10, all eyes on the referees. Look, I think the Niners lost Super Bowl 58 pretty fair and square. They shot themselves in the foot. But it is wild to me how Patrick Mahomes over the last several years has had the most interceptions overturned among all quarterbacks in the NFL, and how the Chiefs led the NFL in holds last year, but did not have a single hold on the 49ers. And I can count on a hand or two how many times I saw Nick Bosa and others get held by the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. This is a funny picture that's been going around over the last couple of months since the start of the NFL season, because it does feel as though sometimes the refs are on the Chiefs' side. And as you can see, the referee here, I believe this is Bill Vinovich, wearing the Kansas City hat, red stripes, and Kansas City on the pocket. It's a joke. I'm not saying the Niners fully lost that game to Kansas City in Super Bowl 58 because of the officiating, but it hasn't helped. And when you think back to 2019, Nick Bosa was held a lot, and the officials didn't do the Niners any favors in that game either. And a pass rush against Patrick Mahomes, it really matters. The only Super Bowl that he's lost, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers set the record for the most quarterback pressures in a Super Bowl in history back during that 2020 season. That's the formula to beat Mahomes. Don't give him time to throw, put him under duress all night. So predict the score. Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers. My score prediction, I do think the Niners lose this game. That's my prediction as of right now. I think the Chiefs find a way to once again win on the margins because they're better on the margins. And they're better at head coach and quarterback than the Niners are. 28-26. You can call me fake. You can call me phony. You can call me a fraud. I want the San Francisco 49ers to prove me wrong. I hope they win this game. I hate the Kansas City Chiefs with every ounce in my being. They are my daddy. They keep me up at night. They drive me nuts. But until I see the Niners actually beat them, because they've never been able to do it under Reid and Mahomes, I have to go with KC.